Deep Sea Life by Ray, yours truly, and
Yeah. First, a disclaimer. The field of deep sea life is actually a relatively new field. Scientists didn't even know that there were things living at the bottom of the ocean until about 50 years ago. So there's a lot of new research being done in this area, and a lot of new things that are being discovered. And some of the things that we see in here might not actually be true. So that's part of what's so exciting about this field, that it's something that's there's still a lot that's unknown, that is left to be discovered.
so part one, oceanic zones. As I'm sure you know, the oceans are very large. They cover, oh, why is this so slow? Hold on. It covers quite a lot of regions. So we found this website that basically goes through the different regions in a pretty decent manner. So first, on your this is measured in depth, by the way, from sea level. This is your epipelagic zone. It is from the surface to 200 meters. This is where the vast majority of ocean life lives, because this is where light is able to come in and things are able to photosynthesize and get a bunch of other stuff. And also there's basically a wider range of temperatures, and also there's not that much pressure here. The pressure of this region ranges from 1 atmosphere to 20 atmospheres at the very bottom of the zone. A good rule of thumb for approximating water pressure at a different depth is basically every 10 meters you go, you add 1 atmosphere of pressure. So I'm sure you can see how that can add up very, very, very quickly. The temperatures of this zone ranges from -2 degrees near the poles to approximately 34 degrees near the equator. So that's a really big range as far as water can go. So yeah, past that, we get to the twilight zone, which is called the
Mesopelagic.
Yeah,
I'll just pronounce
zone. Yes. This is a much larger range. It goes from 200 to 1,000 meters deep. This is known as the twilight zone because there is very little light that reaches here, but there is still a bit of light, so that's very good. It's approximately 20 degrees at the hottest and about 4 degrees at the lowest temperature here. The deepest human dive is approximately 610 meters deep. So that basically gives you sort of a basis on how deep this zone actually goes. At the bottom, that is 100 atmospheres of pressure, which is 140 pounds per square inch. So 140 pounds is about 70 kilograms. So let's say you have like an average niner that's standing on every square inch of your body. That's how much pressure is there. Past that, you get to the midnight zone, which is
Bathypelagic zone.
yeah. The bathypelagic zone, that starts with a B. No sunlight is able to reach here. It's pitch black. You can't see that. Well, it's pitch black as far as natural sunlight is. Yeah. But there are animals that are able to generate their own light. This is called bioluminescence. It's very common in this zone. I think all of you guys know what an anglerfish is, so that's an example of what happens. This is a very, very large range. It goes from 1,000 to 4,000 meters deep, and accordingly, that has a very large range of pressures. Wait, what?
Let's see. It's Yeti crab? Is that what?
Like this thing?
Oh, we're going to talk about these later.
So basically, at around this point, that's the bottom of many seas. So you can see how this is like how deep this is. Surprisingly, there is a very small temperature range here from about 2 degrees Celsius to 4 degrees Celsius. We will get to why that happens later. So a human would literally be crushed into a tiny sphere at the very bottom of this instantly. The highest theoretical pressure that a human can withstand is approximately 100 atmospheres, but not for very long. At the bottom of this is 400 atmospheres. So I think you can understand why that's dangerous. After that, it's as Theo keeps scrolling, we still have 600 meters to go.
Oh, that's where the Titanic is up here. See
Over
where
here at 3,800 meters deep, that's where the Titanic is. And then after that, we get to the abyss. It's called the abyss.
Episopelagic.
Yeah,
Everything just has a
abyss-
pelagic at the end.
Yeah.
But that's
abyss is in the name. Past here, it is basically there's basically nothing here. At this point, the temperature is it's basically constant at 4 degrees Celsius. This is because water is at its densest point at 4 degrees Celsius, and as you can probably imagine, it is very, very dense here due to the immense pressures. And then if you keep going, if you keep going at 6,000 meters deep, and basically this is the final zone, the Hades zone. It is named after the Greek god of the underworld, Hades. This is the final zone. Anything past 6,000 meters is classified as the Hades zone. This is only present in places with tectonic plates that have basically moved between each other, creating vast sea trenches. One of the most famous ones is called the Mariana Trench. This is an example of
Hadopelagic.
zone. At this point, as said before, the temperature has stabilized at a near constant 4 degrees Celsius. There is still life here, surprisingly, even with all of the pressure here. This is the same amount of force per square inch on your body as 100 elephants per square inch. So I think you can imagine, or probably not imagine, how dangerous that is. Only 5 people have ever made it to the very bottom of Challenger Deep, which is the deepest part of the Mariana Trench. And most of them were 50 years ago. That's how we discovered these things. I'm talking about
It's like-
5 people as
yeah,
in,
it's
like actual people who
Yeah.
like gone.
It's like the moon expeditions though. Like there's not really, after they got the first 2 people on the moon, there wasn't really much reason to go back. So
Yeah.
like now they can do a lot of stuff with robots that they don't really need actual people to go down there. But there was some like film director who went down to the Mariana Trench to shoot some James Cameron.
So the animals here are generally like more gelatinous than like hard, like outer skeletons, because at this point, if you have like something that can crack, it will crack. So if you're thinking, why doesn't like it squish into like pieces? Think of having a balloon. If you're squeezing a balloon from 2 sides, then it will pop. However, if you take something and squeeze the balloon from every single part of it, it won't pop because it's all spread out. And that's basically how they survive.
Just showing the people in the Challenger Deep expedition, first people who went down to the bottom.
As you can see, it's still going deeper. Still going deeper. Remember
There's
that
still
the crust of the Earth is only around 50 to 100,000 meters deep.
And Challenger
This
Deep.
is 1/5 of the way through the Earth's crust.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is the zones of the deep sea. Yes.
So this isn't the whole thing.
This isn't the whole
That's
thing.
There's more. So you might be wondering, with all these extreme pressures and temperatures and everything, how does anything possibly survive in the bottom of the ocean?
Guys,
So we're going to talk about some common adaptations that, this is just like a review of the different zones.
as you can see, the abyss zone is basically where most oceans stop.
The Hades zone actually takes up almost like half of the total depth. The trench is just so deep. But anyways, we're talking about some common adaptations of different organisms that allow them to survive at such depths. So the first one is chesolites, which are a type of molecule that basically all things that live in the distal and pedal zone have, and they basically just stabilize proteins to prevent them from collapsing under all the pressure. The most common one is called trimethylamine N oxide, or often shortened to TMAO. And fun fact, this is also what gives fish their like distinctive fishing smell. And this is like a diagram of the TMAO molecule. Next adaptation, since there's absolutely no light at the bottom, in the deepest areas, and not very much light in the upper deep sea, organisms have to come up with some creative sensory adaptation. So in like the Mesopelagic zone, the twilight zone, there's still a bit of light. A lot of things have really big eyes, like you can see here, to capture the very limited light that there is. And some eyes also face upward, like these might look like the eyes, but these green dots are actually this fish's eyes. And they're facing upwards to see like prey that's higher up. So that's pretty cool. But from the Bioluminescence, the midnight zone, down, there's no light at all. So things have to resort to using other senses. One of these is chemoreceptors, which are just receptors that can detect when there's certain chemicals in water. And another one is the lateral line system. This is a system that all fishes have, and it helps them detect vibrations in the water. And the deeper you go, the more developed this lateral line system becomes.
There will be a diagram in the next slide. You might be wondering why this fish is like translucent here, but like dark here. That's actually because the entire fish is translucent. It's just that someone shined a light on this part, so that's the only part that you can see.
Yes. So this is a diagram of the lateral line system. Basically, when water is displaced, there's sensory hairs that can detect even a very tiny vibration from like meters and meters away. So in this system becomes even more powerful when you get to like the distal and pedal zones. And this is just a picture. So if you look at a fish, you might not have noticed it before, but there's like a line that goes along the side. That is actually the lateral line system. Another really common adaptation is bioluminescence. So you all know bioluminescence is when an organism produces light. In the deep sea, there are a few reasons an organism might want to use bioluminescence. They might want to use it to light up the sea so they can see, or they might want to use it as a lure for prey, like anglerfish, or it just might be some sort of reproductive purpose. And a lot of organisms have symbiotic relationship with bioluminescent bacteria, like you can see in here, where they have an organ that basically grows these bacteria and gives them food in exchange for light. Here's just a cool like montage of a bunch of bioluminescent things.
If you didn't know, anglerfish actually have tentacles. Yeah, that's an anglerfish.
Wait, no, what's that one?
This is a hatchet fish.
That's
just a squid.
That's just a giant squid.
Another phenomenon that has been observed is deep sea gigantism. So basically, as you go deeper in the ocean, this doesn't include the sunlight zone. And the sunlight zone is basically things of all different sizes. But starting from the twilight zone or the Mesopelagic zone, things start to get bigger for some reason as you get deeper in the ocean. So there are a lot of proposed reasons for this, and the true reason is probably a combination of all of these. The first one is Birdman's rule, which is that larger organisms conserve heat more efficiently because of a smaller surface area to volume ratio. So they have less surface area to lose heat from. So therefore, it's good for organisms living in colder environments to be bigger because of Birdman's rule. Then there's Kleiber's rule, which it says that larger organisms can metabolize food more efficiently. So if there's a limited amount of food, then it's good to be a larger organism because then you get more out of the food that you're metabolizing. Next is the island rule, which is that anything in isolation tend to get bigger because there's a lack of predation and competition. So this was first observed on islands. But it also applies to the deep sea because the deep sea is basically completely disconnected, almost completely disconnected from the rest of the ocean ecosystem. There's also like small pockets of life. And finally, there are higher dissolved oxygen concentrations the deeper you go because it's the solid concentration, the pressure. So this more oxygen allows things to go larger.
Think of like the insects from like around when the dinosaurs were around. They were massive compared to this because of the atmosphere having a much higher oxygen concentration than it does right now.
And finally, we have chemosynthesis. This word, it's sort of like photosynthesis, but with chemicals. Basically, bacteria can use chemicals that come from deep sea vents in the ocean floor, and they can use these chemicals to get energy to form like organic processes. So at hydrothermal vents, instead of the base of the food chain being light, it's actually these chemicals, these bacteria forming chemosynthesis. So this is just, again, this is one example of how a chemosynthesis reaction might courtesy of carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, and oxygen, making sugar, sulfur, and water.
Wait.
Yep. It's a type of sugar that they use. It's not like glucose, like as what most of above sea surface animals and plants and basically everything else do.